was already gone.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Hopefully she goes out of the car.
It looked like she was planning on it. I don't know if she did or not. We'll find out tomorrow. So what happens is people count, go either right after service or between services and empty the thing. And then everyone, all the little kids especially, come in after church on second service and put their things there. So we don't get all the connection cards until we have to go take them out on the next day. But we can't take them out the next day without there being people because there might be money. So anyway, it's a little complicated. Yeah, he really outdid himself, didn't he? I saw you walk right past the stage. I'm making sure we run out. Yeah. No. Sure.
She's gonna shake shit.
So we don't know how to maybe did. There was no RCD. No. We didn't make an RCD command. There was no possible way you could have done it. But I love the guilty feeling. I guess so. You're gonna jump right to completely guilty.
No matter where I go, it's where that bar is. Every time I sit down there, it's pop. Every single time. I've never seen
He's picking on me.
We're laughing at. Who's that?
only grazing material over here. It's not really a meal, but if anytime you need to get up and eat something, you're welcome to go grab some chips or a little roll or apple or cookie. And drinks are over there. I'm gonna. Well, is there anybody that would be willing to share some notes with like spouse or anybody? Okay, we ended up with running out. That's my bride. Just put it back over the table. I think there's some people coming. And okay, that'll keep me from having to go up and print some more, I guess. No, I think we'll have enough. I think we'll have enough. Now, I mean, I don't think there'll be 20 more. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Let me first pray for us, and I'm really excited you're here, and I think we're going to have fun tonight, and I hope that you come away with one or two things that you find useful in your relationship. So let me pray for us. Heavenly Father, thanks so much that we could be here tonight. Thank you for just the value that you place on other people and the fact that you have put people in our lives that matter, and I pray that we would be able to love them better and be able to make your church a place that is warmer, and that you would be pleased to help us love one another, and that way all people might know that we are your disciples. And so just pray that Jesus would look good because we love each other better. And we ask this in his name. Amen. So, welcome to Wisdom and Healthy Relationships. I started off by, the working title at the beginning was Wisdom and Conflict. And someone said to me, you got to be more positive than that. And so I said, you're probably right, and changed it to Wisdom and Healthy Relationships. And really do want to talk more about healthy relationships than merely just conflict. So wouldn't it be fun to talk about anyway? So why talk about this? I think that's the thing that we probably ought to establish first thing. And the first thing I would say is that relationships can be learned. And that seems really small to me. I'm sorry about that. It didn't look small when I was making it. But they'll probably all be small, that means. So, but relationships can be learned. Sometimes, in fact, in the process of this, my poor family over here they worked with me on this a little bit. And I said, what should I talk about relationships? And Lane said, and Lane said, it's obvious. And I said, I don't think it's obvious for everyone. And in fact, I had a friend, this is just a story about how mixed up I used to be. some of what I picked up really without knowing it, and it was obvious to me when I was a kid, because we moved around all the time, and I had to make friends and make friends and make friends and make friends in different places. Never really had a long-term kind of a way longer-term friends here than I've ever had in my life. But I had a friend who I wrestled when I was a senior. He ended up winning the state championship, and I didn't. That was like a lifelong goal for me, was to win the state championship. He won, and I didn't. And we went to Bible college the next year together, and he said, I was always envious of you because you could get along with people. And he had kind of a hard time with that, actually. He said, I would have traded being state champion for being able to get along with people. And I said, and I would have taken that. But I do think, I mean, this is really so that we don't have those problems. And just make it easier, I think, to get along with people. That's my goal. And I think there are things we can learn to do that. So that's one reason. The other thing is that relationships are a key ingredient to happiness. Just this week, I don't know if you knew this, but just this week, you didn't even know there was such a thing probably. The World Happiness Report came out. There is such a thing. World Happiness Report came out for 2025, and here are a couple of quotes. It says, sharing meals has a strong impact on subjective well-being. Sounds like a report, doesn't it? On par with the influence of income and unemployment. So as important as working and having enough money, he said just simple meals with other people. People who share meals with others report significantly higher levels of life satisfaction and positive effect, and lower levels of negative effect. This is true across ages, genders, countries, cultures, and regions. In other words, I can't give you a better income. But if you can have, if we can spend a few moments and you can have one or two meals with people and have a little better relationships, then the same effect will come to you as if you had more money and a better job. There you go. The other thing they said here in the report was social connections are vital for the well-being of young adults as they provide a buffer against the toxic effects of stress. And so there's all kinds of reasons that we should think about relationships, but one of the reasons is that it's a key ingredient to happiness. And where am I here? There we go. One of the other things that's begun to happen is there's begun to be a transition here, as many of you know, that we're looking for a new campus pastor in West Linn, and as we do, and I want to step from one role to another, I would like to leave a church that has great relationships intact and hand it to the next person and have him be happier because of even the time we spend together today. And then the final thing is that I have spent too much time recently being sad at seeing good people unable to get along. And I have spent hours with people who have what looks like an easily resolvable situation that can't be resolved. And that has been hard for me. This was born because of those conflicts, this months and months ago. Everyone said, this is what I want to do for my seminar. We're having a seminar at each congregation. This is what I want to do. And I said, I want to have one about conflict because I have too much of it. And at the same time, we end up keeping our grandchildren overnight. And they came during the day, and I was at work, and I went home, and I listened a little bit to their talking and learned that my rake was broken. And I mean, I probably wouldn't have registered except I was in the middle of all of these other conflicts with adults. And so here I got these kids, and they broke my rake. And so I went, I kind of listened for which one it was, and I said, so did you break Grandpa's rake? And he goes like this. No. Or no. He said, I don't know. I said, were you holding it when it broke? Yes. But I don't know how it broke. Oh, okay. I said, Grandpa uses that every day. And I'm going to miss that rake. What are we going to do about it? And he does this again. Say sorry. And I said, I don't know that just saying sorry does it. How about being sorry? It's real that you're sorry. Do you want to tell Grandpa that you're really sorry? I'll fix it. I said, okay, you will. How are you going to do that? He said, duct tape. I said, really? I mean, frankly, there was just no way it was fixable. I said, okay, well, so after you fix it, we'll talk about this again. Because I did that, and I kind of bored on that poor guy, because I was with these adults who were unable to get to the bottom of anything. And when they couldn't get to the bottom of it, they just piled up these offenses until they wouldn't go away. And so one thing led to another. They came to the end of their stay, and the rake was exactly where I left it, broken in the garage, with no duct tape on it. And so I said, noticed you didn't try and fix the rake. Well, you didn't want to fix it anyway. I said, well, no, I didn't think you could possibly fix it. So that was what I thought. But I still don't have a rake, and it's still not okay. What are we going to do now? And he looks down at the ground this time. I'm sorry, Grandpa. And I said, you know what? That's all I needed in the first place. Was just a heartfelt, I'm sorry, Grandpa. And I said, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, except for when I have to tell it publicly like this, we're done. We're finished with this. I'm not going to bring this up again. I'm not going to be mad at you. And so I just want you to know that I forgive you and we're finished. And we were. And the reason that I, again, poor little guy, bored in on him like that was because the adults that I was dealing with at that time couldn't get there. They would stop. And then it wouldn't be resolved. And then the next thing, and this happened over months, it wouldn't get better. And so they got more and more stuck. But anyway, so that's what I was starting to do. Was we're going to talk about conflict here. But I do hope to expand it a little more and have a little more fun, because it's not all going to be about conflict today. So what it's going to be, though, is about harmony, disharmony, repair. Every relationship, whether it's a marriage relationship, whether it's little boys on the jungle gym, whether it's neighbors, every relationship has these three stages: harmony, disharmony, and repair. Well, if it's a healthy relationship. Otherwise, it just has harmony, then disharmony, and the relationship's over, right? So harmony, disharmony, repair. So that's going to be the outline for our time together. Is we're going to talk about some of the things that affect harmony, some of the things that affect disharmony, and then some of the ways that we can repair. And so in relational harmony, when you have relational harmony, this is what everybody's after, right? Everything's good. Everything's good. And it's fun to be together, and you enjoy one another, and the conversations are easy, and the fighting is not there, and it's all good. You have maybe common interests, you're spending time together, you're talking, it's all good. And then you have disharmony and then repair. We're going to spend a little bit on harmony. So there are lots of proverbs, and I felt terrible for the guys in the sound booth today because I think I used 40 verses. So I'm not going to give you every verse on friendship and relationships from Proverbs, but I just want you to know this is a biblical topic, and we're dealing with a biblical issue, because when a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. In other words, one of the things you can do for harmony, to have relational harmony, is to walk with Jesus. Because when your ways please the Lord, then even the people with whom you have disharmony and need repair, they're going to be at peace with you. And so that's one thing. A friend loves at all times. A brother's born for adversity. Joyful heart's good medicine. Crushed spirit drives out the bones. These are lots of the things that the Proverbs talk about with respect to friendship. And of course, there's all kinds of layers about relationships, whether it's anger or whether it's disdain or whether it's love or all kinds of things in the Proverbs. But Proverbs has a lot to say about relationships in which there's harmony. So how do you maintain harmony in a relationship? This is the first thing that I want to point out, and that is that, and this is easy when you have people who are your friends. If they're your friends, you assume positive intent until you don't. You assume that people mean well, and that they mean the best, and they're doing what they're doing for good reasons. Now, I start here because of this. You need to have a story about what other people are doing that matches reality. And I start here because in the conflicts that I was part of when I started this, they assumed the worst about each other. I didn't think there was reason. I was kind of in the middle, assuming the best about both parties. Both were upset with me because I was assuming the best about the people they weren't getting along with. But the reality is, we tell ourselves stories about what other people are doing. And if they're not doing what we want them to do, we tell ourselves a story. They don't care, or I'm not important to them, or they're too busy for me, or you can say whatever you want, but we tell ourselves a story. And I think that's the thing, and maybe if you don't get anything else out of this, we end up telling ourselves stories about relationships that sabotage the relationships. And if you assume positive intent, and it takes a lot, so this is the other thing I have to confess up front, okay? In talking to my family about this, you can check with them. I'm perfect on every one of these things that I'm talking about here. So feel free to just double check with them. They know. But frankly, this is one of those things that I do struggle with, as I make up stories and I make them up quick about what is happening to me. And maybe you don't do that, and maybe this is just something unusual, but it happens. I'm just going to say, I'm going to pick on Al. It happened already with Al tonight. Al walked in, and he was beginning to tell me a story about why he didn't RSVP. Did any of you RSVP? You all didn't RSVP for the same reason Al didn't RSVP. There were no RSVPs required. But he was telling me a story about it. and the thing is, we've got, we all tell ourselves stories about what other people are doing and about what it means then for us. And so, especially if somebody says something that we don't like or that we consider to be unhappy, we need to tell ourselves this story. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, profuse are the kisses of an enemy. And so you need to understand that even if your friends are telling you the truth and you don't like it, they're doing it for a good reason. And so assume positive intent. Now, the second thing that I would add to relational harmony is this. What if you put whatever it is you're doing, whatever it is you're talking about, on the other foot? If you switch it around and you take their spot, how would it sound to them what you're saying? What you're saying, how would that sound to the other person? How would they, and here's the thing, what story are they going to tell themselves about you? Because this is what's going on in relationships, is we're telling ourselves stories that without really the clarity that we would have if we were all perfect communicators, we would share the same stories. But we don't share the same stories. We make up stories. I'm making one up and they're making one up. And so when we get together, we're a mess. And I just want to say, one of the best things you can do for your communication with a friend is to put yourself in their shoes and say, how would this sound if I heard this? This happened just the other day. I was talking to somebody who was having a hard time, and they were certain that this person was, the story they were telling themselves is, this person is just trying to cause me trouble. Okay? Now, you want to know what this person thought they were doing? This person thought they were being faithful to the Bible and doing Matthew 18. If your brother offends you, go talk to them. So this person here is robed in faithfulness in the story they're telling themselves. This person over here is frustrated beyond belief because that person seems self-righteous and only trying to cause me trouble. And so what ended up happening, and I'll just say what ended up happening, was they got together, listened to each other, and everything is fine. But it took a sales program for me to sell, well, I was talking to this person, sell this person on listening and saying, guess what? They're telling themselves a different story. And you can come in with your story and you can shake your finger at them about how they're so wrong. And guess what you'll have? Then you'll really have a fight. And that person will be on the defensive. And when you get together, you'll be unhelpful to one another. But what if you concede the point that maybe this person does have good intentions, and so you concede that point, and the two of you then can talk, understanding the stories that you're each telling, and come together and communicate. And thankfully they did that. But the ability to do that, one of the things that in part of the definition of emotional intelligence is the ability to anticipate the effect that you have on another person. And that's kind of what the second one is switch into their seat and listen to yourself talk about the issue. Another thing that maintains harmony is play or humor. If you think about it, that's what parents do, isn't it? They make play dates for their kids. Why? So their kids have friends. That's what the play date is all about. And guess what happens when you become an adult? You don't do that anymore. Guess what happens even when you become an older adult? You do it less. And it becomes harder and harder to build good friendships. Victor Borge, I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember Victor Borge. Okay, about 4 of you, that's good. He's hilarious and he has a spot on verbal punctuation. If you just search Victor Borge visual punctuation, it's a hilarious little sketch that you'll enjoy. But anyway, He says laughter is the closest distance between two people. And so if you can laugh and cultivate a sense of humor and smile, you will be a much warmer person than you would be if you don't. Well, here I quote again, joyful heart is good medicine, crushed spirit dries up the bones. But I have some of you know we do a ministry training program called Doulos here, and we're doing that now for multiple churches. We have some people from other churches, and we've had, I don't know, like 4 different pastors' sons come through here, and we have a pastor's son from a different church. And I saw his dad one time, and I said, I just am really enjoying having your son in there. He just seems like a happy kid. And this was his answer. This is his dad's answer about his son. He has a great resting face. In other words, when he rests in a smile. Now, that might just be something you want to work on. I'll just say, you go to the mirror and relax and smile at yourself and practice. Seriously. I listened to one person talking about public speaking, this was years ago. His advice was, make your face your own. Make your face your own. And he suggested practicing expressions so that you would be able to have fun with people without, doing anything really crazy or even having to go set up a game, but you could just have fun. Make your face your own. I don't know if any of you saw the Walk with the Wise reading this morning, but I just couldn't help myself but to pass along to you some of the fun things that I've run across in preparation for this. But anyway, I won't bore you with those now. You can look that up later. Another thing to maintain harmony is to be curious. To be curious. If there was anything that I could say would help, well, let me say it this way, that I wish people would do for me. So I'm not asking this of you, by the way. I'll even go a step farther. That I wish my parents would do for me is to be curious. And just push in and just, how is this for you? And what is happening? Help me see it your way. Help me understand. Give me your perspective. And be curious about the other person, how the other person feels and thinks, what they experience, what they're going through. If you can be curious, you will be a friendly person. There's really not much more to it than that. Another way to say it is be interested, not interesting. I think so many people, when you think of relationships, you want to think about being an interesting person. I got to have a good story. I got to be that person who who's the life of the party. You don't have to be the life of the party. Okay? You have to make the person you're talking to believe they're the life of the party. And then you're in the money. So just be curious. And one of the things that I've recommended is I would have done this whole seminar just from this book called The 6 Conversations by Heather Holleman, but I've used it before. We used this when we did the political discussions because it's really good about helping you be curious, and you're welcome to take a look at that later. But curiosity is, I think, the key to friendship. The next thing, this is against the advice of my family. They said, don't tell us the obvious things. Like, I said, like what? Like listening. Probably listening and trust. I'm not going to talk about trust. You should be a trustworthy person if you're going to have relationships. Otherwise, all bets are off. I'm assuming that. I'm assuming that you get that because the Lord is at work in your life. But active listening is really important. So mirroring, does anyone know what mirroring is? Probably do. Mirroring, Chris is mirroring there. There we go. Good call, Chris. Mirroring is, so you do it in body language. You can, so if I'm like this and you're talking to me, you're going to be like this too. If I'm going to talk to Tanya, oops, there's no chair there. If I'm going to talk to Tanya, I'm going to sit there and talk to Tanya like this, okay? That's just mirroring. That's mirroring with body language. That's one way. Do it with body language, but do it verbally too. So somebody, maybe it's not, we won't find this question in here, but somebody says, you ask somebody, how was your day? Okay, not the best question, but you ask them that, and they said, oh, they go, it was a hard day, okay? So you said it was a hard day. Why was it a hard day? Okay, you just mirrored back to them what they just said. So verbally you did it, and if you do it with body language. But you just essentially repeat and go a step farther. It was a hard day. Why was it a hard day? Or they say, I had an accident. Oh dear, tell me about your accident. Or anything, but you're just using some of the key words that they use, repeat it back to them, and then that will show them you're listening. That's one thing. The other thing, I don't have it on here, and I should have put it on here, is use people's names. Use people's names. That's like the sweetest thing in anybody's ears is their own name. And I had somebody do this to me on the phone, and I thought they were selling me something. But they just went over, well, Scott, tell me about that, and Scott this, and Scott that. And it's like, okay, stop it. They maybe overdid. But I try and do that, especially when I meet new people, because when I meet new people, I kind of lose track of their name. And that's what I'm trying to learn that, so I try and repeat it. But mirroring is one thing. Check for understanding. This, I mean, if I could wave a magic wand and have everybody do this one thing, I probably say that about the whole seminar, but about this one thing, check for understanding. In other words, do I understand what you're communicating to me? Because most of the time we don't on the first pass. And then when we don't understand it, then we tell ourselves a story. We go back to the previous slide. We tell ourselves a story, and then we have conflict. Just check for understanding. I understand that, and a lot of times, this is maybe not the best practice. This is not best practice, but this is one of the things that I'll do. I'll specifically misstate something. So maybe somebody will tell me, I feel really stressed, okay? And I'll say, so you're telling me that you feel immobilized by how hard your life is right now? No, I don't feel immobilized. I just feel a little bit of anxiety. Oh, okay. But I'm trying to restate what they told me in a way that helps them to clarify it, so I make sure that I hear what they're telling me. Does that make sense? So check for understanding. And you can probably not do this too much. I suppose if somebody begs for mercy, then they say, no, you understand me 100%, please stop asking. That'd be different. But that's never happened to me. I've never understood anyone that completely that they've asked me to stop checking to make sure. And then the third thing, this isn't so much active listening, another place to put it, is just use I statements instead of you statements. So you're responding, and some of you have heard this before, but use I statements rather than you statements. You respond to them, and you want to communicate. You can't communicate how they are because you haven't understood well enough. You haven't listened well enough. You can't tell them how they are. So you're mad? Okay, you can't tell them they're mad. You can't, but you say, I feel like you're upset with me. Okay? And then what you're communicating, then you're communicating something you absolutely know. I absolutely know how I feel. I'm not projecting anything on you. I just feel like you're upset with me. And so I communicate it in an I statement rather than a you statement. So I thought it would be fun for us to practice this. So if it's possible to partner up, find a partner, and one of you designate yourself as A and the other designate yourself as B, okay? So I'll let you have a minute to partner up. We're going to practice this. So if you're married to the person next to you, practice this at your own risk. So I'm going to give you each a situation. I'm going to give person A a situation. Does anyone need a partner? Everybody got a partner? Okay. Okay. So here you go. If you're person A, this is what you would say. Okay. And then you're going to rephrase this with an I statement, right? You are late. Okay. Change that around. Well, maybe we should talk through this first one. Do you think? Everyone's like, no! The look on your face was priceless. I wish I had that. Okay, so let's talk through the first one. You're late. That's what I want to tell them, right? And that does happen. Happened to you probably. You're late. You're going to restate that in a non-accusatory I statement. So that does sound accusatory, doesn't it? You're late. Especially when you go, you're late. What would you need to communicate to somebody with an I statement?
I expected you earlier.
You forgot to say, I expected you earlier. So what you're trying to communicate with the person is how their lateness affects you, right? That's really the only thing you have to communicate. Okay, the objective truth you know what time it's time. You want to communicate with them how you're experiencing their lateness. And so you might say, it makes me feel unimportant when you're late, especially if it's routine. Or, it's important to me that we get there on time, and I'm frustrated again that we're late. And so you're telling them, you're communicating then what you're feeling, and see, then they have something to work with. You're late is not something they can work with. Does that make sense? Let's do another one here. You are indecisive. No, I wasn't intended to make anyone groan, like, oh. Okay? You're indecisive. What do you need to communicate about how that indecision affects you, do you think?
Can't make any decisions. Please make one for me.
That's the person who's indecisive, which I appreciate that. That's a good, clear statement. That's a good, clear statement. Thank you. Somebody else?
I was going to say, I feel lonely in decision making when you don't help me make a decision.
Okay, my problem is I feel lonely. Okay, I feel like I'm out on an island, and I really want to include you. Okay, I love you and I want to include you, or you're my friend and I would like to make this decision together, but when we can't, then I get frustrated. So what I'm communicating is my own frustration rather than the objective truth that all of the guilty people hear. The oof was a problem for me. I am sorry. There'll probably be oofs on these other ones too, but so you're trying to relate how their behavior affects you. Does that make sense? And it's hard. And so just the first thing, I expected you earlier, is going to get you not very far. So give this some thought and work on it. So person A, here's your first one. Okay? You're going to love this, person A. The person you're with is boring, and you'd like to say, you aren't any fun. That's how you really feel. But you're going to say it in an I statement. So go ahead, figure it out, say it to your partner. Okay. I got one for person B now. Are you ready? Did that go okay? No, but I got like several no's. Okay. We're going to practice. We're going to do a little practice. Person B now is going to say, person B wants to say, you're ignoring me. You want to say, you're ignoring me. How are you going to rephrase that in an I statement? Now be careful. So I'll just give you a little hint to person B. You might be tempted to say, I feel like you're ignoring me. Is that what you said? That's the same. That's the same. So what you're trying to do is give an impact statement about how it hits you. Okay? You're ignoring me. Change that around so they have something that they can deal with about how it affects you. You ain't listening on this. Okay. How you doing? Still friends with the people at your table? Try again. Person A. Person A might be a parent. They just might be. Because the thing they have to communicate is, you are irresponsible. Okay? How are you going to turn that around about an impact statement that starts with I? Ready? Begin. Manipulative? Like, stop being irresponsible. Well, you can say it in a way that's manipulative. Okay, how many ways did you find to say you're being irresponsible? You find lots of different ways to say that? Okay, person A, here's your next assignment. You guys are so exhausted already, aren't you? You don't respect me. You want to say, you don't respect me. A. A is the one that's going to reframe this for person B. A is speaking. You don't respect me. Ready, begin. Chris, you're having too much fun. Okay, person B. Person B, here's your turn. Are you ready? You want to communicate, you never call me. You never call me. Rephrase that. And this one might actually be the easiest one of the whole bunch, right?
We don't know how we're going to marry for 30 years.
How do you know? We're like, this is have no idea how to say this.
Good.
It's terrible.
No, that's good practice. And I hope it's good practice.
I know. I might be calling you out because it's really
Okay, one last one. Person A, here you go. This is going to be, I just thought, we've been kind of negative about this, right? So now, let's rephrase it in an I statement that's positive. You are gorgeous. You're gorgeous. Or good looking or whatever. If you guys are over there talking, it might be a little weird if you say you were gorgeous, but. So give somebody a compliment. Try and turn that around. Yeah. I want to hear this. Okay, person B. Person B, here's yours. You are so smart. I want you to turn around and tell the person you're so smart. See if you can use an I statement.
I appreciate the way that you
Really? That's a you statement, Dale. It's still a you statement. I like it when, maybe.
Well, to the quiz communicator, what I'm hearing you say is that
Don't forget.
Okay. So, don't have a ton of time for this, but did you learn anything about that? If so, what did you discover?
I need to practice that.
It's hard, I need to practice that. Think before you talk. That's a Proverbs thing, isn't it?
Or pray before you talk.
Pray. There you go. Well, one of the things I think that is the hard part, and this is where, again, we talked about being slow to anger and things this morning, but taking a little pause to say, how does this really affect me? Because I think that's one of the things we don't really think through is, how does this really affect me? And that's what I'm going to reflect back to the other person.
Yeah, and you had said earlier, like, we know what we feel. I don't always know what I feel. And so I actually have to have some internal conversation.
Oh.
Like, how do I actually? Yeah.
I hate that. But yes, you're right. Good, thank you. So hopefully that was enough to get you started, but it does take practice because you can say it and it sounds just the same. You can say it and it sounds manipulative. But if it's a heartfelt thing, I really, it makes me sad that we can't communicate better rather than saying, you're such a bad communicator. Might be one of the things you want to, a skill you might want to develop. So another thing, I'm going to try and hurry through these, about maintaining harmony is body language. My goal with this was just to think through, like, some people have heard some of this stuff before, some people have not heard any of this. I'm going to try and get something that everyone will have, something they can take away that they haven't heard before. So one of the things is about body language, and I get, there are several things that you can do that will help you maintain, believe it or not, relationships, the mirroring that I mentioned earlier. But if you simply wave at people, okay, even when you first see, even if they're coming to meet with you and sit down and talk for an hour for lunch, but you wave to them when you first see them. Somebody said people love to see hands. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I tell you what, I thought, I'm going to try that. I heard somebody talk about this. I'm going to try that. I tried it at church next week. And there was somebody that I just saw across the way and went like that. And you could just see them light up. I was so surprised. And so I've been thinking about it ever since. Every time I'm in church. Hi. You know, so, and again, you can manipulate people or you be insincere with this. But it will warm the whole group up. If this many people at church were just to say, you know, across the room, or good to see you, or welcome in, that kind of thing, it's super simple, but effective. Smile with your eyes. Okay, this is something I learned during COVID, sadly. Got your mask on. You got to work to smile with your eyes. So, in other words, smiling with your eyes is more sincere than smiling just with your mouth. So that's another thing. Lean in. When you're talking with somebody, lean forward rather than lean back. Lean so that it looks like you're interested in them. Now, I say looks like you're interested in them, not looks like you're interested in them when you're not, but be interested in them and lean forward. And when you do, you'll be surprised what that communicates to the other person. So that's just a couple ideas, things to not do with body language. This will ruin your relationship. Roll your eyes. Why do you laugh? Seriously, rolling your eyes is a sign of disdain. And in fact, I can cite someone who rolled their eyes at me, and it almost, I want to give the benefit of the doubt, almost or may have ruined our relationship. There are things I will not talk to this person about anymore because they rolled their eyes at me when I said something. I mean, this is a serious thing. They can predict they can predict divorce based on eye rolls and disdain, looks of disdain on the face. Researchers can watch tapes of couples without hearing any words and predict with 93% success rate whether that couple will be divorced or not. And it has to do with eye rolls and a look of disdain. So don't do that, please. Don't sigh, shrug, or close off. By close off, I just mean, trying to communicate, I'm not interested, okay? Or turning away from a person sideways, I'm not that interested. And the thing about this is, you might say, oh, this sounds so like woo-woo or manipulative or whatever. But if you are not interested and you were to stop, you would find yourself kind of turned away or closed off or, shrugging or something. You would discover you're already doing it. And so start by saying, I'm going to go in there, I'm not going to be this way. I'm going to work on body language that communicates that I'm interested in the other person. I'm getting that, and I'm getting this next slide from Vanessa Van Edwards, who actually, last I knew, lived in Portland. But she talks about ways that you communicate to people that they're important. And one of her things, this isn't so much body language, but she said, these are three keys to help people like you. Reach out unprovoked. I was thinking of you. Just, I was thinking of you. And then maybe you want to fill in the blank and say, I was thinking of you because you asked us to pray for your doctor's appointment. Or, follow it up with something maybe. I wasn't having an empty thought about you. I was actually thinking about you. So that's one thing, because she said that is one of the things that helps people like you. Next thing, give people a positive label. You are so considerate, or you are, one of the things I really like about you is that you seem to remember people's names. I wish I could remember people's names. How do you do it? But you're giving people a positive label. You seem like someone who always is trying to help other people. Whatever it is you want to give people a positive label when you see them, and you'll find that is helpful in your relationship. And then follow up. I mentioned that about the prayer request, but last time we talked, you mentioned that your daughter's coming into town. Okay? Did she get here okay? Was it nice to have her? something like that. So you're just remembering something and might help to take notes. But those are 3 things that she said will signal to people that you like them and will be signals that they will like you. So anyway, so much for the good times. Relational harmony, done. Okay, I want my halfway point in my own pacing is going to be when we get done with the relational disharmony. And so I want to take a break, but I want to try and do this maybe quickly and then get to the repair part. Because repair was actually the thing that I wanted to do the whole seminar on. So anyway, when a relationship is ruptured, somebody rolled their eyes or somebody did something else that caused tension in the relationship, this is the thing. And all I have here, we don't need lessons on how to rupture relationships, do we? Here are 3 keys to ruin your friendships. We don't need that. We do that anyway. What I want to give you now are 5 things, 5 strategies not to do when there's a problem. Okay? There's a problem in your relationship. You can do any number of things. Here are 5 not to do. The first thing is don't insist on being right. Don't argue about whose view is more accurate because it fuels self-righteous indignation. This is kind of the counsel I gave that person I was telling you about when the 2 people had different stories they were telling themselves. You don't have to be right that your story is the only story and impose that on them, and they don't have to agree to your story in order to have a conversation with you. You can go on their terms and have the conversation. You don't have to be right. You might be right. Okay, that's okay if you're right. But you don't have to force them to agree you're right before you can repair the relationship. So don't insist on being right. Second thing, don't control your partner or your friend. Don't control them. In other words, what happens, you can control them directly or you can control them indirectly. And, direct control is rules or threats or intimidation or financial restrictions or anything else like that. Indirect control is making people feel guilty. This is maybe for the parents in the room, right? Is making them feel guilty, subtly undermining them, playing the victim. Oh, you don't want mom to feel bad, blah, 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 blah. And you laying guilt on, passive-aggressive things, gaslighting, giving helpful criticism. A lot of times we frame control as concern. I'm just trying to help you improve. So there are a number of things that, a number of ways you can do this explicitly or implicitly, because nobody likes to be controlled, and control leads to retaliation and payback. Unbridled self-expression. This is the other thing. I want to be authentic, so I want to say what's on my mind. Because actually, if I didn't say what's on my mind, that would be inauthentic, wouldn't it? And how can I have a friendship if I'm inauthentic? Okay, that is not true. Okay, don't go away. Let that not be the thing you get out of this, right? You don't need to say everything that's on your mind. If there's anything the Proverbs tell you, it's that you don't need to say everything you think. In fact, that is folly to do that. And so you don't have to say what comes to mind, and that isn't what it means to be authentic. The fourth thing is retaliation. I mentioned that controlling leads to retaliation, but retaliation is essentially making you feel what I feel. Okay? Tell me you don't know what that means. I think we all know what that means, don't we? That's what we're going to do in a relationship. We've been hurt. We want the other person to be hurt. That's when we have the problems in relationships. I want to hurt. It's not so much that I want to have a war. I want to hurt you back. I want you to feel what I feel. And so we retaliate. And that can be covert or overt or covert. I mean, we can do that one of the ways people talk about is defending from the victim position. So you feel like you're a victim. They're the ones that stood you up. Maybe you're going to have a lunch meeting. They stood you up. Okay, am I the only one that thinks about standing them up the next time I feel so bad. Let's reschedule. Okay, let's reschedule. That's fine. I can miss lunch too, you know. See, that all of that is just manipulative and retaliatory, and that's not. You have had a rupture in your relationship that will not make it better. Let me say it that way. And then the last one is withdrawal. Don't necessarily withdraw. This is different. Sometimes you need to take a time out, and you need to do it responsibly. Like, I'm going to be careful about the next thing I say, so I'm going to take the little pause. I'm going to hit the pause button, take a little space. That's okay. To say I'm going to disengage from the relationship or I'm going to somehow essentially resign is not going to get you where you need to go. And so that's not a good strategy. One of the marriage counseling books, or the premarital counseling books that I use is, good grief, I just spaced the name of it. Some of you have used it. How We Love, thank you. How We Love. And How We Love, they talk about love styles. And one of the love styles is avoidance. In other words, the way that you navigate difficult things is by stepping back and not engaging. And that's very, very common. And so that's one of the 5 non-helpful strategies when you have a rupture in your relationship. Well, there you go. That's as fast as I can do that. I want to go back and talk a little bit more about that, but let's take a little break here. And let's tell you what, I'll give you 11 minutes. Be back at 4:15, when Big Hand's on 3. Help yourself to food. We don't want to take it home, but we didn't plan to, give you a 6-course meal either. So help yourself. cause trouble, of course, which is being right, controlling somebody, saying whatever's on your mind, getting even, and pulling back. Those are the 5 things that will continue the disharmony. If you don't do that, and you give yourself a chance to recover, okay, here are, I have oh, I haven't turned it on yet, sorry. Thank you. There we go. I have another laundry list of things that you might think of to do to help recover relationships. So, if you're going to repair a relationship, the first question that you need to ask yourself, and this is one I mentioned this morning, is can you overlook it? You've had some kind of disruption. Maybe somebody did stand you up for lunch, okay? Is that the kind of thing you can overlook or not? You've got to decide. Is it big enough that I can't overlook it? I'm going to hold it against that person every time, or can I let it go? And as we mentioned this morning, good sense makes one slow to anger, but it's to his glory to overlook an offense. Now, Ken Sande in his book, The Peacemaker, which I commend, it's not really in this form any longer. It's got a new title and has some other things, but if you were to search Ken Sande, I think you'd find material of his that would be related to this. But he suggests really 3 things that give you a barometer about whether you can overlook it or not. The first thing is, has it created a wall between you or changed your perspective on the other person for more than just a short period of time? Has this problem changed your perspective on a person for a long period of time? Okay, I mentioned getting stood up for lunch. That frustrated me when that happened. But by late afternoon, or when I checked in with the person, like, are you coming? They said, no, oh no, I'm sorry, I forgot to write it down, da-da-da-da-da, and it's over. It didn't change my perspective. I can overlook it. Other things about that same size just sort of eat at me, and that is a problem. So does it change your perspective on them? The second thing is, does the offense do serious harm to God's reputation, to other people, or even to the offender? Does it do harm? In other words, is it harmful enough that I can't overlook it? And it might be that somebody, let's just say, somebody is really driving erratically, and you're in the car, and it makes you afraid. Or they want to take your kids, and you're like, I don't think so. And so you've got this, and you're saying, can I overlook this bad driving? And you say, that bad driving might be one of those things that I can't overlook because it's going to cause harm. So does it create a wall, and does it cause harm? And then I think probably the key measuring stick for whether you can overlook it is, am I filing this away to use against the person later? I mean, none of you would do that, but I have been known to do that. I will hold on to it, and I'll file it away until I need it. And that's a good sign that you haven't overlooked it, and that potentially you can't overlook it, and you're going to need to repair the relationship. And so, to me, that's a big one, because what happens if we start getting these next few things wrong, then somebody does something wrong. Again, we'll just say that they stood me up for lunch. Okay, like that's a big deal. Nobody here is going to stand me up for lunch ever again. But I won't let that go. But I'm not going to talk to them about it either. And then the next time that they are late, or they're untrustworthy, or that I doubt their motives, now I've got 2 problems. Because I didn't let the first one go. I couldn't overlook it. And then this next one isn't near as big as the first one, so I'm not going to deal with that. And then I got a third one, then I got a fourth one. Now I have a whole pile, and I can't deal with the whole pile. That's what we normally do in our relationships, is we create a pile and you can't deal with the pile. You can only deal with one thing at a time. So the first question about that one thing is, can you overlook it? And if you file it away to use against a person later, it's not overlooked, and you're going to need to deal with it in a more substantive way. The next thing that, again, Ken Sande and the Peacemakers suggests is examine yourself. Examine yourself. Is there something in your life that is contributing? Chances are that there are. Okay? Is there some way that you are sinning in the situation? Is there something that you need to change about this? And this isn't, again, something that you use against somebody. It's not something that you'll say, well, I know we're not getting along right now, but is there anything that you should be doing differently? It's not an offensive weapon, this, okay? This is only just, again, in the pause that you take when you're thinking about what it is you're doing, you're going to examine yourself. You're going to count the costs about whether it's worth holding the grudge and remaining to be upset. The third thing that I would say is to shift from complaint to request. Shift from complaint to request. It's very easy to complain about what somebody else is doing because they're actually doing it and it really bothers you. But if you can shift from complaint to a request, so you're going to practice saying what you want rather than complaining. And this is going to be hard for those of you that were indecisive. Okay? I mean, I want you to decide for me. Okay? This is really to say that you have an opinion about what you need. And see, a lot of people don't feel like they can say that in a relationship. Like, I really need to not have a meeting before 9 o'clock. Okay? That's just something that I might, that's my request. Can we move the meeting later? Rather than, you always pick the least convenient times for us to get together. Why do you do that? Say what you need. Make your request specific, behavioral, and reasonable. Okay, if you're in disharmony, if there's been a rupture, then you're probably going to need a request about what you need to fix the relationship. Okay, this is really important. What you need to fix a relationship. For instance, this has never happened to me because really the church has been so gracious to me. This happened to all the other preachers that I know. Okay? Namely, that people come and complain to the pastor right before he has to preach a sermon. Okay, that is not a really cool thing to do. But, I mean, some pastors are just going to sit there and take it. They'll probably cross their arms and snarl and all the things. But it would be more mature to say, you know what? You're important to me and I want to hear about this. But right before I go up to preach is not the time. Can we make an appointment? Okay. The answer is no. No, you need to hear it. Okay, well, I can't really hear it right now, and I won't respond to it right now. So if we can't make an appointment, I'm going to assume this isn't that important to you. And we'll have to either we'll deal with this later or we can't deal with it at all. And you have to be able to say what you mean and what you need. I need to not talk about this right now. Or you get heated and yelling. You need to change from a complaint to a request and say something like, how might we talk about this in a more constructive way? Or, I don't really like the way that this is going right now. Can we take a pause and come back to this tomorrow? Okay? Like I think that Christians who have been told, don't let the sun go down in your anger, say that is like heresy to say, let's schedule an argument. I think you can. I think it's okay to request that. I will do better in loving you if we can schedule this conflict. Okay, that's okay to say that. When you make the request, it needs to begin with this. I need ... Okay? I need to know before Friday about this, or I need to not have this weighing on me day after day after day. Can we set aside some time to talk this through? Or whatever it is you need. Because that's the thing we're so terrible at, is say, again, it's a nice statement, isn't it? But it's communicating what I need in order to have a healthy relationship with you. And so, shift from the complaint to the request. The next thing is probably obvious. Communicate with love and respect. Don't forget that you love the person that has hurt you. That's why it hurts you. If you didn't care about them, it wouldn't hurt you. So don't forget that. I really want this to work, and I want to respect them, which means I don't need to demand that they have my view of it. I need to respect their view and make sure that I understand, do all the listening things we talked about earlier, so that I can get where I need to go. One of the things about love and respect is to put limits on the repair conversation. Now this I think will help some of you, may not help all of you, but it's not terrible to say, how about if we do our best for 15 minutes and then we'll just take a pause and we'll have to pick it up again tomorrow? Would that be okay? Now, when people really want to fight, that's not okay. But that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to fight, we're trying to repair. And so you can put a limit on it. Or, you know what? I can't really have this conversation right now because I won't sleep very well tonight. I know I won't. I'm happy to talk about it first thing in the morning, but let's talk about it and set a limit about when you're going to talk about it. The limit might be to say, tell you what, tonight I think all I've got is help me understand what you're trying to say to me. And that's all we're going to do is the understanding part tonight. We'll do the fighting part tomorrow, but let's do the understanding part tonight. We're going to take it in pieces where it's going to be easier to choose. So we'll solve it, we'll resolve the conflict another time, but let me just make sure that I understand it, because right now the story this is what we're doing in our communication. The story I'm telling myself about you is not the one I want to tell myself. So help me understand so I can tell myself the right story, and I'm going to do way better resolving this tomorrow. Okay? You have to put limits on your need to be right. We already talked about that. And you can let them put the frame around the conversation if you like. Here, this next thing is probably worth the price of admission here today. So use the steps of the feedback wheel. What I saw and heard, and you'll notice a theme. You'll notice a theme in what I'm talking about. What I saw and heard, these are the facts as I understand them. What I saw and heard. I heard you say, or I thought I saw you leave last night. What happened? Or whatever it is you thought you saw or heard, those are the facts. Start there. And then they say, no, well, I didn't do that, or this didn't happen. That's the first thing. Second thing, and this is the theme, here is what I made up about it. Here is the story I'm telling myself about that. And maybe if you don't get anything else out of this evening, realize this is what we're doing in relationships, is we're all telling ourselves stories about one another, and we're interweaving those stories. And that's the great thing about being a church or being a life group, is your stories are entwined. And some of them are true, but many of them aren't even true. They're just stories we tell ourselves. And what happens is I see something, and if Marcia weren't here, I would tell this example. Okay? She cleans our house. I love that our house is clean. Okay? I don't love that some of my things disappear. Okay? Turns out that those two things are part of the same process, right? And so what I saw and heard is my shoes disappeared. The story I tell myself about that is where the rubber meets the road, right? Okay, the story I tell myself, she always does this. Or she doesn't care, that I want my shoes right there. That's right where I want them. Now I don't know where they are. And I tell myself this story. And the thing is, that's just a small one, and usually I find them before I make things worse. But what I saw and heard, the story I tell myself about it, how I feel about it, okay, that's sometimes part of the story. Because I'm telling myself the story about this and says, oh, yeah, she cares way more about having a clean house than she cares about me. Okay? That's not a very good story, and that's not even true. But that's part of my story that I tell myself. But see, what this is feedback wheel. And guess what? She's learning this tonight. Okay, that's a problem that we'll talk about when we get home. But you see, that's why this is a feedback wheel. That's why this is a feedback wheel. Because if we communicate, some of you are like, he is so dead. I feel so sorry for you. Anyway, I have to compose myself now. What I saw and heard, the story I tell myself, how it makes me feel, and then what I would like. Okay, if I did this, guess what? I would never have a problem with this again. And the reason I have a problem with it, the reason I had a problem with it, one time and then I had it again, is because I never did this. That's on me. It's completely on me because I did not give her any feedback about that at all. I pretended it was something I could overlook, and here I am using it against her, right? That is not the way to manage that. But this is golden, and it's super simple. But it does assume that you understand what you're doing is telling yourself a story about other people. And if there's a theme to tonight, it's probably that. Let me say it differently. Of these 4 steps, what I saw and heard, sometimes that gets reported. Okay? What I'd like you not to do that anymore. Sometimes that gets reported. The parts that we skip are step 2 and step 3. We're really not honest enough with ourselves or with the people in our lives to get to step 2 and step 3. Here's the story I tell. In that, I think if you learn anything tonight or want to think through anything else tonight, that would be the thing that I would really encourage you to do, is realize that in the conflicts, especially in the conflicts, I'm telling myself a story. And sometimes I need to reconcile that with the other person's story too. So when it comes to repair, use the feedback wheel as a tool. Then here's this is important enough to me. I have this as a mantra on my computer. No cherished outcomes. Because if I'm wed to the outcome, then I can't work the process. And so if I really, let's just take the shoes since I'm already in trouble for that. Let's take the shoes, okay? my outcome, if I say the outcome that must come from this conflict is my shoes must be here for the rest of eternity, that is the only outcome I will accept. Okay? How constructive will our conversation be about this? I have absolutely no room for negotiation, and it isn't really about our relationship anymore. That's, I think, the thing. The thing that I'm trying to get you when we're talking about repairing relationship, the relationship is far more important than the shoes. But if I make the thing that I cherish, what happens to the shoes? Then I'm communicating that the relationship is secondary and not that important. And so, just as you're looking at, how do I repair a relationship? I think one of the things that you can do is just simply let go of the outcome and say, we've got to talk about this even if it doesn't go my way. So what if it doesn't go your way? Is it okay to make, to have the kind of conversation you need to have with another person if it doesn't turn out like you want it to turn out? So then we're going to get to the meat and potatoes. Okay, this was going to be the whole seminar 2 months ago or 3 months ago. But this, I think, is one of the things that when I dealt with the adults, okay, so I told you about my challenge with my grandson and what needed to happen there. And the reason I pushed all the way to the end was so that we could get to the bottom and have an apology and have it resolved. An effective apology resolves things rather than perpetuates things. And when I was dealing with the adults that were having conflict with one another, there were not effective apologies, and so there was not effective forgiveness, and so those things, as I mentioned, continued to pile up. And then there was a stack, and they could not work through the stack. There is no relational shredder where you can make things disappear. Because if you've already added to the stack, and really, to get rid of the stack, you've still got to take them one by one. And you got to go back and take them one by one, one after another, and that is grueling. So I would recommend taking them as they come. So that you get one thing, deal with it, make a good apology for it, secure forgiveness, and like I did with my grandson, confirm, we're done with that, aren't we? We don't need to bring that up anymore. It's finished. I forgive you. I receive the forgiveness. We're good. So here is the first thing about an effective apology is an expression of remorse, which is simply, I'm sorry, which acknowledges the wrongdoing without qualification or excuse. So it acknowledges that I did this. I'm not sorry for how you feel about it. That's not a good apology. I'm not sorry that you can't deal with this. Okay, I'm making it worse than normal. But sometimes some apologies are like that, aren't they? Oh, I'm sorry if I hurt you. No ifs, no buts, no maybes, no perhapses, none of that. No qualifications. If I hurt you, I'm sorry. How many of us have received an apology like that? No, thank you. Please don't even bother. Because yes, that's why we're having this conversation, because you did hurt me. So, are you going to own that or not? Okay, that's some of what, and do you recognize that it did hurt me? That's, I think, what we're after. So be specific and state it from the other person's point of view. This is important, too. State it from the other person's point of view. So if I've hurt somebody and I need to apologize, when I throw an if in there, I'm not from their point of view, am I? I'm clearly just, well, if it's a problem for you, I'm sorry. Okay? I haven't done the work to say, I'm sorry because I can tell that this really meant a lot to you and I treated it carelessly. Would you please forgive me? So I've acknowledged what I've done and how it hurt you. Does that make sense? And if I had, a whole weekend, we'd practice this because this is so easy to get close, but not get to the heart. And again, it comes from understanding, doing the listening that we talked about earlier, understanding really how it did hurt. But you got to get to where it hurt and then own the fact that you did this. So the next thing is acknowledge the harm. So name the action and its impact. I understand that when I forgot our anniversary, it made you feel unimportant and overlooked. Okay? Well, pretty much. So but what that does is it says, I did this, right? I forgot, and the harm is you felt. So the story you have to be telling yourself. So again, I'm going for the story. The story you must be telling yourself, because I was such a knucklehead, is that you're unimportant to me and you feel overlooked. Okay? Now, that's easy it's easy to see. It's much harder to do. And you can do this, parents need to be way better at this, right? Because parents will just come on super strong or, lay down the law or whatever it is, and then they'll say, yeah, sorry, or get over it, or go to your room, and not really work through it. The working through the thing is, I understand. See, and again, what you're doing when you say, I understand, you're putting yourself in their perspective. I understand that when I raised my voice at you, that was a threat to you, that you felt threatened at that moment, and that's not what I meant to do. Would you please forgive me? And so you're acknowledging how you think they understood it, and you've listened, hopefully, so you've got that. So, expression of remorse, acknowledgement of harm, and then acceptance of responsibility. So it's, yes, I did this, but I take full ownership without deflecting the blame or using language that minimizes accountability. In other words, taking the blame is, I like this, I made a mistake rather than mistakes were made. Even mistakes were made by me isn't good enough, right? I did this, and I take responsibility for it. And if you can't take responsibility, you're not ready to apologize, frankly. Because there is no way to really apologize without taking the responsibility. And so, the deflecting blame, if you hadn't have, I wouldn't have. Or if you wouldn't have done this, then I wouldn't have. But because you did, I did that because you did that. Those are not taking responsibility. Those are deflecting and blaming things. No, I lashed out because I was angry, not because you did anything, but because of me. And I take responsibility for that. I acknowledge that harmed you. Okay, I lashed out and it harmed you and it made you not ever want to talk to me again, and I understand that. And I really wish I hadn't done that. I'm so sorry. Okay, I express remorse. Then, the fourth thing is, and there are multiple different books you read and different things have multiple steps. I think these 5 are about as succinct of an expression of this as you can find. But the next thing is to accept the consequences. See, that's one of the things that we don't want to do. We want to make the consequences go away, and we want to turn our apology into some negotiation. Like, but I apologize, so you shouldn't fill in the blank. Or you should go back to doing whatever it was you're doing. and we want to use an apology as a negotiation, and that is not an apology, that's a negotiation. An apology is simply what, first of all, I acknowledge the consequences, and then if I need to make reparation, I will. So I understand that, I mean, this is, you have to have the other steps first, too. You have to understand remorse and the fact that, what was the other thing? What were the three things that we just had? Remorse, harm, and responsibility. If you don't have remorse, harm, and responsibility, then you come here and you plan to repair. That's kind of my grandson wanted to jump to that step. I'm going to fix the rake. Okay? Well, the rake isn't really the problem. We're not trying to fix the rake. We're trying to fix the relationship. And so the other three go first. And if I need the rake fixed to be good, or you need the rake fixed that I broke to be good, then I better fix the rake, or I better get you a new rake, or I better do something. You see, I need to accept the consequences of what I did and make reparation if needed. Oops, what happened? We went back. Oh, there we go. And the last thing is a commitment to change. So, I understand that I raised my voice and how that felt intimidating to you, and it was so hurtful. I do take responsibility, and if you don't want to talk to me about any of this, again, I understand. Okay, that's some of the reparations or some of the consequences I have to accept. And then, but I also want you to know that I'm working on this, and I'm, fill in the blank. I'm actually going to a Wisdom and Healthy Relationship seminar tonight to work on this, or whatever it is. So you're building in some kind of a commitment to change. Because if you don't, then, then all bets are off. And it's like my, in my situation in my yard, okay? Without a commitment to change, which I didn't secure in this apology thing, I didn't get all the way there. Okay, guess what I'm worried about next time? The replacement rake, right? The replacement rake is in danger because there's not been necessarily a commitment to change. And so these are all, for us to get all the way home, that's the way I'm thinking about it, get all the way home with our relationships so that we don't stack offenses on top of one another. So I saved you a couple minutes, and you guys are going to hate this. But I'm not going to make you talk to one another, so you're not going to hate it as bad as you could hate it. But I want you to just you have to do this kind of quickly. But using these 5 things, I'm going to give you like 5 minutes for this project. Using these 5 things, I want you to write, to remember when somebody offended you. Okay, if the person's around your table, you might want to pick a different thing. But you might want to pick that and have a conversation later. That's up to you. But pick something where somebody offended you, and I want you to write the apology that you wish you had have received. I want you to write the apology that you wish you would receive. So I told you you'd hate this. Because this is going to be hard. And you know what, you don't have to write it out verbatim. That might be something you want to do tonight or journal. But at least give yourself an outline. What do I wish they'd say about, what do I wish they'd say about remorse? What do I wish they'd say about harm? What do I wish they'd say about responsibility or about repair or about change? So give, and you may not want to pick the hardest one. You may want to pick a recent one. You may want to pick, but just take a minute and write out an apology. Not that you're going to give somebody else, but that you wish you received, and try and work these 5 things in it. Ready, go. Okay. I liked it better when you were all laughing and waving at one another, and it was much lighter and easier then. But this is an important part, and I hope that writing an apology that you wish you had received would be a easier way for you to kind of get the whole story on the apology rather than have to formulate one about something you've done. Because really, sometimes you have to formulate an apology for something you've done, like in the moment, when it's surprised. I didn't realize I'd goofed up, and now I have, and then I got to go through the 5 things, and that's kind of hard. But thinking in terms of this is what I would really have liked. Now, I mean, I imagine there's a chance in which some of you will take that apology and slide it around to the person who needs it, who wish you wish they'd have given it to you, and say, this is what I wish you'd have said. And I wish you wouldn't do that. When you go, that wasn't the purpose of that exercise, but it could help. But anyway, the whole thing, I hope, goes together, because there are things that you can do to keep harmony in your relationship. I mean, the simplest, assuming positive intent, being curious, listening, using I statements. Okay, you can do 5 non-helpful things to keep the problem in the middle of your relationship if you like, but I would prefer you not do that. And then if you want to repair a relationship, can you overlook the problem, examine yourself, or what part do you play in the problem, use the feedback wheel to articulate the problem as you see it, and then practice the apology. So that's kind of the whole outline, and I just would be curious, and you don't have to share it first here right now, like, what is it that you need to do when you leave here? What is it that you need to work on to strengthen the relationships in your life? I mean, because some of it is you have different relationships with different people, but the common denominator is you. You're the one that travels in all the relationships you have. And so there are things that you are doing that you could change that might elevate all of the relationships you had. What is there here that you need to learn and think about and practice and get better at? And hopefully, as the tide rises, all of the boats, all of your relationships will rise a little bit as well. And so I just want you to think about what it is that you might need to do when you get out of here and when you leave. And then just as far as 2 minutes goes, I mean, let me just ask this kind of as a wrap up to kind of get you noisy again, because it made me nervous when you all got quiet. What is there was there anything here that you thought was most helpful, or that you'd never thought of, then you can't? So this is a positive thing. This is not like, what do I need to work on to do better? But this is a positive thing, like, I can hardly wait. I've never thought about that before. I'm going to wave at everyone, or whatever the case may be. What is it that is there anything that you thought of that you would say, this is one of the things I'm looking forward to working on?
Yeah, identifying the story and telling myself.
Oh, good. Yeah, me too.
Asking questions.
Okay.
Question about the situation.
Good. Being curious and seeking to understand. Good. Yeah. Being good at asking questions is, I mean, in some respect, that's what will make you a rock star with other people. If you are good at asking questions, and again, I can't recommend this book enough. I really enjoyed this book. And as I read it, thought, oh, that would be fun if somebody would ask me that. Oh, that'd be fun if somebody asked. Again, that's kind of how we all process things, isn't it? This would be good to be on the receiving end of that. I've got a couple up here if you want to look at them. Learning to Disagree. It's written by a lawyer. It's not exactly what you think, but 6 Conversations, Peacemaker, and How to Be a People Person by John Maxwell. That one's a really old one. But anything else that you're looking forward to trying? Okay.
One of my key words, as I am older and my daughter is younger and our roles seem to be different, is how to be relevant
Okay.
in her life, and she in mine.
Okay. And what she likes might be one of those things, have a play date. Good. Okay. Well, let me pray for you and I'll send you out. And I appreciate that you came tonight, and I hope that this helps. And I look forward to this being one of the things that helps kind of warm the church up and keep us in having good relationships. So let me pray for us. Father, I do want to submit to you again and ask that you would just help us with this. We believe that you really love people, and we ask that you would help us to love people as well. And so, Father, I thank you that we have your Holy Spirit within us that makes us full of love and joy and peace and gentleness and kindness and goodness and self-control. And would you help us to express that in a way that is good, not only for us, but for other people? And we long for you to just again, show the world that we're your disciples because we love one another. Well, thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Well, have a wonderful week, and I look forward to hearing how you use some of these things.
So you said you go to the second service?
Glasgow.
Oh, you're good. No wonder. No wonder.
Nice to meet you. I'm sure we'll see you again at some point. Doing a new live watch. There's a men's breakfast Saturday, 10 o'clock.
Best friend at the